On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing Fannie Mae's 2024 housing outlook, builder sentiment, and Zillow's most popular markets in 2023. Today is Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Welcome to the hot sheet. Lot to go over here. It's the true housing week as we are wrapping up the year of 2023. We have Fannie Mae's outlook joining the club of all of these 2024 outlooks that we've gone over the last, I don't know, call it 3-4 weeks, the last month anyways. If you've missed any of our past hot sheets and some of the 2024 outlooks, you can go re-listen to them on Apple Podcasts. Love for you to leave a review there, or obviously rewatch them here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell for YouTube. Also, before we get into Fannie Mae and their outlook, if you haven't done so already, right now is the time to do it. I'm talking about BAMX. We have our biggest sale ever going on. Using code FROSTY here for holiday season to get 25% off. Make sure you use that on the annual. When you get locked into the annual, as prices go up in the future, you are grandfathered in. We have many of our OG BAMX members that are grandfathered in at a ridiculously low price. So use code FROSTY to get 25% off the annual. If you do the monthly, you only get 25% off the first month. With that, you get access to all of our show notes from every single show. This is how much goes into each and every single hot sheet. Here are the show notes for just today's show. So you'll get show notes for each and every single show. And in fact, tomorrow in BAMX, myself and the senior editor for BAM, Vanessa, are going to be going live, a live stream mastermind on exactly how to access, use, and benefit from the hot sheet show notes each and every single day for your email list, for your social in 2024, for your personal local show. You also get all of our downloads from the hot sheet each and every day, our new courses that are uploaded every single month, these live streams and masterminds that I talk about. So if you're not in BAMX, make sure you do that. Use code FROSTY to get 25% off, our biggest discount ever. Prices only go up in BAMX, just like in Jerome Powell's world of inflation. Let's get into what Fannie Mae thinks about 2024. Seems like we've been coming off some really good positive momentum here, especially in the last week. Let's see if Fannie Mae supports that. Okay, some of the headline forecasts for Fannie Mae would be a slight decline in GDP in 2024 by 0.3%. Followed by a 1.7% growth in 2025. Interesting, because we've seen growth of GDP in other forecasters, but not here from Fannie Mae. Anticipating slow recovery in the next 2 to 3 quarters is Fannie Mae, with the possibility of economic growth decelerating significantly. Projecting the start of the Fed fund rate cuts in Q2 of 2024, but at a cautious pace. So despite what the Fed said, hey, 3 cuts in 24, got everybody jacked up, Fannie Mae is painting a picture of caution. Okay. Now their overview for going backwards here of 2023, inflation has decelerated as expected. If what I talked about on yesterday's hot sheet, it really comes to fruition, which we've been talking about here for 9 months, and that those rent prices drop, inflation deceleration is going to drop even more. It'll be even potentially below the 2% level that the Fed is targeting. Economic growth more resilient than anticipated. And GDP growth is now expected to be 2.6% on a Q4 basis. So pretty growth, obviously opposite of what was originally projected, as Fannie Mae's original projection of a modest recession. The economy completely went opposite field on that projection, 2.6% increase. Okay. Now here, let's get into their housing projection. Okay. And this is, to me, the big one. I'm referencing the Redfin projection a lot on total transactions, at the end of the year being a seasonally adjusted rate in Q4 of 24, 4.5 million transactions. That'd be a great improvement from where we are today at about 3.8. But Fannie Mae and all these charts will be available for you in BAMX. Use code Frosty to get 25% off if you're not there already. But here's Fannie Mae's projections on home sales, on transactions. 2023 home sales will be the lowest since 2010. So that's this year. We know that, okay? We're sitting at 3.8 million seasonally adjusted. But what do they say next year? Slow recovery shall begin. We entered the year forecasting existing home sales to be around 4 million, a pace below most other forecasters and the lowest since 2010. While our forecasts oscillated over the year, volatile mortgage rates and our view on economic growth evolved, the sale expectation held in a narrow range. So this is a pat on the back for Fannie Mae. Hey, we were below most other forecasters at around 4 million. That's where we ended up, just under 4 million. So, we were right, they were wrong. That's what Fannie Mae is saying there. The drivers of slow sales are well known at this point: unaffordability, lock-in effects, and a lack of existing inventories freezing much of the housing market. We believe these dynamics will slowly dissipate over time, but they are going to remain obstacles in 24. We forecast year total 2024 home sales only to be marginally higher than 2023. Okay, so this is 2023's chart, and they don't have a chart here for the projections, and they don't really put a number to it. Let's see. The extreme low point in October, existing sales dropped to an annualized pace of 3.79 million. That's likely to be the low point. Okay, so they're calling that the low point. I like that. Okay, we don't want to go much lower than that. Logan Motoshami from Housing Wire, points to us really never for a 12-month run being below 4 million. In the last 25 years, he points to there always being 4 million home buyers in the U.S. as a floor in the U.S. home market. He expects from Housing Wire this to absolutely be our low point and us bounce back up to that 4 million number and above in 2024, especially as these rates are improving right now. Mortgage rates obviously are helping this, but we don't have a number here, an actual number from Fannie Mae. They do talk about mortgage applications increasing, okay, in 2024. So they're seeing mortgage applications going up, but remember, they're saying a modest increase in sales. So what they're saying is less cash transactions in 24 than we experienced in 23. They believe there'll be more demand for the mortgage, obviously through the application projection for this market. New home sales were more resilient than expected this year. Recent declines in mortgage rates suggest a potential rebound in those new home sales as well. Because remember, as these rates come down, it means the builder's rate gets even lower, right? If we're sitting at 6.5, there are some places in the country where you're seeing production home builders coming in at 4.5. So the lower the rate gets, the new home rate can get even lower when they're doing the financing and offering the incentives. Okay. 2004. So total sales, this is new and existing. Okay. When I was giving those numbers out before, we're talking about existing home sales at the 4 million mark. So total sales, 5.4 million in, 4.8 million in 2024. So about, and this is where we've seen projection, 750, 800,000 on a new home sale, about 4 million on the existing. Mortgage originations to grow from 1.5 trillion in 2023 to 1.9 trillion in 2024 and 2.3 trillion in 2025. A lot of lenders are going to welcome an increase and a jump like that. That's basically a 25% jump here on the year for lenders on volume for mortgage transactions. GDP revised upward to a 5.2% annualized rate, third quarter of 23. That was a change. Unemployment rate dropped to 3.7% in November. So this is rear view mirror here. Let's get into some more of their projections. Okay, so let's get into the mortgage rate projection. 6.7% for the mortgage rate in 2024 and 6.2% in 2025. So they've got the rate averaging 6.7%, to be higher, a little bit higher than where we sit today for the year of 2024. Essentially, on Mortgage News Daily's daily number, we basically be pretty flat if Fannie Mae was right on that, and 6.2 in 25. So really no significant, you know, stabilization in the fives. Not saying I agree with it. This is Fannie Mae's projection. Um, and so there you go on most of theirs. Here's some concerns and risks from Fannie Mae. While cooling inflation and wage growth are occurring, the labor market is cool, and they are concerned about future inflationary pressures if monetary policy is eased prematurely. Obviously, Jerome Powell and the Fed doesn't want to do that. But when you take into consideration the lagging data that we talked about yesterday on rent, inflation might actually already be lower than the 2% when you take that out, when that catches up. And that would create, they don't want inflation to go into deflationary mode. They don't want it to be, negative inflation. They want that 2%. They don't want to be above it. They don't want to be below it. They want to be right at it. They mean the FOMC. And so, if it were to drop down, they would be cutting to try to boost back to that level. Remember, as they can see 2% in the target, they will cut before we get there. Balancing the need for monetary policy easing without reanimating inflation is a challenging task. Of course it is. It's all about landing the plane softly, this soft landing that they have been discussing over at the FOMC for quite some time. Here's some more charts for you here on labor market and on inflation. You see the current forecast on the unemployment rate is actually lower than the prior forecast for unemployment rate. So they actually see unemployment being better than their prior forecast, but above where we are today. In fact, they've got it up over 4%, looking at about 5% on their projection going into 2024 and really into 2025. We've been pretty low here for quite some time, living at, under 4%. The November CPI report generally in line with expectations. We've covered that here. Their current forecast here is got us getting to a 2% in, say, the end of 2025, I guess, is where they've got us going there. Baseline expectation, the Fed will begin a modest pace of Fed rate cuts starting again in Q2 of 2024. We'll welcome it sooner. Here's their mortgage rates forecast changes. Current forecast is below the prior forecast. Okay, so prior forecasts had them up around 7.5% for 2024. Again, now coming down to that 6.7. So they're adjusting their prior forecast, and their current forecast is under most of the prior forecasts. So, I think, what we saw with the Fed and what we've seen now with inflation coming down in the last couple of weeks, and all of these good data points are adjusting their expectations, even on the existing home sales, a little bit higher than the prior forecast. The current forecast has us getting back to that just over 4 million mark in on existing home sales in 2024, and then even to 4.2 by the end of 2024, and then by the end of 2025, nearing 5 million, their current forecast for existing home sales. So this does not include new construction. All right. New construction, new single family home sales. Their current forecast is again higher than the prior forecast, just about 700,000 in 2024 and getting up to 750 by the end of 2025 on new home sales. And so there you go. There's a whole bunch of this data that we dropped and carved out for you. I think is about I'll tell you because it's in my show notes. 13 charts that you'll be able to download right from BAMX. Obviously, you'll get access to all of the show notes if you want to use for your email blasts and different pieces of data points that you're sending out to your clients. It'll all be available for you in the show notes on BAMX. Code Frosty for the biggest discount ever right now. All right, what do builders think? Okay, we know what Fannie Mae thinks. What are the builders feeling right now? Builder sentiment has improved for the first time in 5 months. It's according to the National Association of Home Builders, NAHB. Builder confidence in the market for newly built single-family homes rose 3 points to 37 in December. So very low index still for builders. Obviously, 50 is kind of like that break-even number for builders. But falling mortgage rates played a significant role in ending a 4-month decline in builder confidence. Builders reported an uptick in traffic as well, as some prospective buyers who felt previously priced out of the market are now reconsidering. This would support Zillow's major projection that there are going to be homeowners that are just like, you know what? I'm comfortable with it. I know where the rates are at. This is where they're going to be at. I'm going to go make that move. And if you need new living space, if your life is like, I need a bigger home right now because of family, or I need a smaller home, or I need a more efficient home, or a home in this area or that area, or one that I can work out of, and you've just been dealing with 2 or 3 years now of not living in the right home for your life, it makes sense that you might be going and looking at new when you're going to go and rip that Band-Aid off and make that move as a consumer. Okay. That would create potential, hopefully another sale on the other side. Oftentimes it does. Many of our buyers are sellers on the other side. The reason pessimism and builder confidence in the fall has been somewhat counter to gains in the pace of single family permits and starts, it's been somewhat counter rather to how many permits and starts we're seeing in that same period. So you've got pessimism, cautiousness, but then at the same time, realizing the lack of inventory, there are still permits and starts that are happening. Improving housing conditions should head into 2024. According to NAHB, the housing market seems to have passed the peak of mortgage rates for this cycle, potentially spurring homebuyer demand in the coming months. We've been talking about this, it seems like demand in a couple weeks here when we get into January is going to feel significantly heavier than it's felt at any point in the last 6 months. You're going to be getting into the early innings of what we consider a spring market, or you're going to be just steps away from that in January. Last year, when we hit 5.99 in January at one point, or this past January, it felt like a light switch on demand. It wasn't as significant as years prior on demand, but you could be coming into a market like that. So real estate agents, professionals, be prepared for a bustling January through the summer. Take advantage of that opportunity. I think as you get closer to November, you could see, not only because it's the seasonal pullback that we typically see, but you could just see some volatility, hostility in the market as we get closer to that November election. For those of us that have been through multiple president elections as real estate sales professionals, understand that for about 30 to 60 days before the election, there are some consumers that will just wait and see what happens. If my guy, my girl gets in, whatever the case may be, however they make those decisions, there are people that'll kind of lock in here and wait and see what happens. And it's all about, just like this builder report, builder sentiment. It's how they're feeling. It's what they're experiencing, the professionals on the ground level. That's an indicator of how consumers feel. When you look back on the presidential elections that you've worked through, consumers feel a certain way, and some of them, not all, some, I would say a smaller percentage, but a percentage that's noticeable in a market pullback, or freeze up for a little period of time, kind of wait and see what happens. All right. Anything else here of note on the builder sentiment? I don't think so. Basically, they're up to 37. They've got to get up to 50. for it to really be, an even market. Of course, they had been up over 50 for most of the previous couple of years, but now living below that number. Zillow has a report out, and it's the most popular markets of 2023. The Northeast are dominating this report, mostly small towns in the Northeast. It makes sense to me because most of these towns are experiencing the lowest inventory throughout the country. The Northeast has that. So here are the top 10 most popular markets. Before we get to that, I'll give you how Zillow comes up with these most popular markets of 2023. This is Zillow Surfers. Okay, so people surfing the Zillow platform. Zillow surfers generally gravitated towards these smaller cities in 2023. Um, and so only one of the top 10 has a population of over 100,000. So this is based off of the Zillow traffic. They've obviously got more data and more traffic than anybody. So it is something to consider. The 10 most popular markets on Zillow for 2023. Westchester, Pennsylvania takes the top spot. Nashua, New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, Wethersfield, Connecticut, West Hartford, Connecticut, Stowe, Ohio, Middletown, Connecticut, Twinsburg, Ohio, Newington, Connecticut, and Concord, New Hampshire. So you have New Hampshire, Connecticut, Ohio dominating the list, all with multiple spots. And then you've got one location in Pennsylvania. These are all definitely small towns. I know many of them personally, and it makes sense because most of these towns have really no inventory to speak of. The inventory that they do have requires a lot of work, and so when you've got no options, people that want to move to these areas continue to just hit on their app, continue to search, waiting for something else to hit, and you're just not seeing that happen quite yet. Hopefully that will improve this year. Most popular large city, Chula Vista, California. Most popular seaside town was South Portland, Maine. The most popular vacation town, Vermilion. I don't know if I'm even saying that. It's a Lake Erie, Vermilion, maybe Vermilion, Ohio. I've never vacationed there, but Lake Erie, I'm sure it sounds lovely. Okay. Most popular retirement town, Pinehurst, North Carolina, very popular spot. And here's their methodology and definitions. Analyze housing markets to indicate that consumer demand, including page view traffic, home value growth, and days on market for more than 2,000 U.S. cities to rank the most popular markets among Zillow surfers. And there you go. That's how they came up with that. I thought another interesting piece here on Zillow. Just this is for real estate agents. This is something to internalize. Okay. We often are in our world, in our bubble, thinking people are paying attention to the economy as closely as we are. And some certainly are. And you need to be able to talk the talk and do the walk with them. But there are many that are in the market right now that aren't that aware or that are just learning. It's why the best line about a real estate agent comes, I believe, from Dave Ramsey. You got to have the heart of a teacher. You got to be willing to educate folks, which means you got to know the goods and be able to really educate them. And look at this headline from Zillow here. About half of adults are unaware of the average mortgage rate. Okay, so if they're unaware of what the average mortgage rate is, that means they might think it's really high because they've been hearing about inflation and high rates from the Fed right now. They may think it's unattainable when in fact we know that this week affordability has improved for a lot of consumers. Okay, about half of homeowners and renters estimated that the average rate was below 6%, but the average rate had not been lower than 6% since September 2022. Okay. So they actually thought it was lower. What is important? Rate aware homebuyers understand their affordability and monthly costs, can better navigate different lenders and lending options. Rate aware homeowners can strategically refinance for substantial savings. So about 50% of homeowners and 45% of renters average rate was 6% or higher. Okay, so there you go. Half thought it was higher. So people are just all over the board here on the interest rate is what really it boils down to. And I've been saying for quite some time here, if you're working with a homeowner, be leading with payment. Okay, be leading with payment for. I'm sorry, a home buyer, somebody who's shopping, a consumer who's shopping. Be leading with the payment and helping them understand payment differences even from week to week as you're shopping at homes, because 2 weeks ago their payment was different than it was today. And there might even be a lower price option today on the market than there was just 2 weeks ago, depending on which market you're in. Let's take a look at the 10-year. We are still sitting here below a 4% handle on the 10-year. We're at 3.901, flirting with a 3.8 on the 10-year, which would be a beautiful thing. The 30-year fixed yesterday ticked up just a tiny bit from 6.64 to 6.65. But for the last three readings on Mortgage News Daily, we've been in that low 6.6 to 6.5, a 6.65 range rather, on the 30-year fixed. 10-year dropping a little bit today to start the day might bring us closer to 6.5 on the 30-year fix. That would be a beautiful thing, and it would start to unfreeze this market potentially a little bit. But if you want to get the best price on BAMX ever, you will have to use a Frosty code. Use code Frosty to get 25% off. Biggest discount we've ever done on BAMX. Use that today. You get access to every single show note. Tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern time, myself and the senior editor at BAM are going to be going over a live stream with BAMX members on the show notes that they all have, that all BAMX members have access to. So don't miss that. That will be tomorrow at 3:00 exclusively for BAMX members. Use code Frosty to get 25% off. Hope everybody has a great day. Later today at 2 p.m., we'll be releasing a new real word, the 301st episode. We celebrated 300th episode last week. It'll be the last episode of 2023. Hit subscribe and hit the reminder bell so you do not miss that podcast happening later today at 2:00. Until then, have a great day. We'll see you back here 2:00 or tomorrow. Toodaloo.